Dear students, welcome back. Now, after finishing the module 4, that is the quantum mechanics and lasers, now I'm going to start the module 1, which we have already covered in the class. Nevertheless, for your revision, it will be helpful because anyway, we are not going to start our session before 1st of the June. So let's start with the waves and oscillations of the first module. Now, firstly, I'm taking the introduction of SHM, where we use the SHM. So each day we encounter many kinds of the oscillatory motion. Common example include the swing of the pendulum of a clock and vibrating guitar string. Example on the microscopic scale are vibrating atoms in the quartz crystals of wristwatch and the vibrating molecules of air that transmit sound waves. The above cases are mechanical oscillations. So we are well versed with the mechanical oscillations because you keep playing your guitars. So that is the vibrations. Only thing is you require to convert them in a mathematical form. Similarly, we are familiar with the electromagnetic oscillations because you have already finished your module 3, where you have done in the detail of the electromagnetic oscillations. How that has been produced. This has been produced by electrons. Electron when electrons are surging back and forth in the circuits that are responsible for transmitting and receiving the radio or TV signals. That is, when the electromagnetic wave is being produced with the movement of the electrons, the acceleration of the electrons. So electrons are doing back and forth in the circuits, and from that you are producing your electromagnetic waves, and the electromagnetic waves are responsible for the transmission and receiving of your radio signals. Because the electromagnetic wave, you have a very large spectrum starting from the ultraviolet ray, the visible spectrum, in the radio wave, infrared. So all these spectrums are there. So some part of the spectrum is being used for your radio and TV signals. All right. One common feature of all these systems is the mathematical formulation used to describe their oscillations. So that also we have seen in case of your electromagnetic waves, that is electrical vector and magnetic vector was moving in the medium, and that electrical vector and magnetic vectors we have represented mathematically, and we have derived the cases for your electromagnetic waves. In all cases, the oscillating quantity, whether to be displacement of the particle or the magnitude of the electric field, can be described in terms of the sine and cosine functions. That also we have seen. So electromagnetic wave will be you can represent this in form of the sine wave and cosine wave. So how we are going to represent them mathematically, that become one of the important tasks. So therefore, in this chapter, we concentrate on the mechanical oscillations and their description. So how oscillations is being produced. So what are the fundamental nature of the oscillations, how the oscillation is going to die down, what are the some of the applications of the oscillations. But we are only going to concentrate into the mechanical oscillations. So electronic oscillations like your electromagnetic waves that you have done, we are not going to deal with such things. So let us see the further. So what are the basic characteristics of SHM? So what is the SHM? If there is a repetitive motion to the central equilibrium point, then we say it's a SHM. Now you see this figure. So this is a pendulum, and in this case, a pendulum, you have a bob in the red color, and it is oscillating from your equilibrium point. So here, this is your equilibrium point. So this line is your equilibrium point, and with this respect to this equilibrium point, it is oscillating, right? Around this, it is oscillating. Now, how it is oscillating? So you can see this figure carefully. Symmetry of the maximum displacement. Now you see both the side the maximum displacement. So every time the maximum displacement is same, right? So there is a symmetry of the maximum displacement. Period of each cycle is constant. So naturally, if it is going to travel the same distance both the side, right? So naturally, this period of motion is also going to be constant. Force causing the motion is directly directed towards the equilibrium points. So when it is coming to your extreme position, so this is your extreme position where it is coming, so the force will be at this point will be acting towards the mean position, right? And therefore we are representing it by minus. Then F directly proportional to the displacement from the equilibrium, right? F equal to K into X. So directly where K is your proportionality constant and X is the displacement. So F is directly proportional, that is the force which is acting is directly proportional to the displacement. So higher be the displacement, more be the value of the force that will be acting. And then this is your important relation, that acceleration is equal to minus omega square into displacement, where the displacement is your x and omega is your angular frequency. So how we can get omega? We can get omega only when you are able to see here the SHM, right? The simple pendulum is oscillating, so it can be represented into your sine wave and cosine wave. So if I am going to put this motion on a piece of the paper, then how it will come? So now you see this, the same example here I have been taken. So here you have taken a spring, and for in this spring you have got a mass. So this mass is attached and this mass is moving up down, right? And here this is a rolling over paper, so this paper is moving. So in this direction this paper is moving, so this paper is in the motion, so rolling over paper. So as this mass is going up and down, let us suppose there is a ink in this mass, there is some ink, then what we find that on this rolling paper some type of the mark like this is being represented. So the mark that I have shown you over here with the blue color, this type of the mark is being represented on the paper. So long it is going to oscillate. What I find from this mark, that this is your sine wave or cosine wave. So this is your sine wave and cosine wave. So naturally the moment you have your sine wave and cosine wave, right, so it will have an angular frequency, and if it has angular frequency, so then it will have a particular displacement, it will have a particular velocity, it will have a particular acceleration, and that acceleration will be equal to omega square into displacement and minus sine, so that it is going to act towards the mean position. So this we'll see in detail, that how this is going to be directly proportional to your displacement and square of your angular frequency, right? So let's move forward. Now derivation of the equation of simple harmonic oscillator. So again this is a very simple derivations. So let us look into. Let us suppose here this is your spring, and in this spring you have got a mass, and this mass is moving up and down as you can see in this diagram. So what is happening? Now you see here it is going up to this is your maximum height and this is your mean position. So from this mean position, this is your minimum, right? So now you see between this 2 points it is oscillating, between these 2 points it is oscillating. So let us suppose the central point of this is this one. So this becomes your mean position. It is getting contracted this much and it is getting expanded this much, right? So what is happening? What we can say, this will be your displacement. So this will be your displacement, and again this will be your displacement, and this displacement we can represent by x, right? So how we can write down is an equation, how these oscillations can be mathematically represented. This is what we require to see over here. So consider an oscillating system of a particle of mass m attached to a spring of a spring constant. Let us suppose that a spring constant is k. So here that value has missed out. So spring constant is k, that is free to move over a frictionless horizontal surface, is subject to restoring force, right? So naturally here the spring constant k will be your nothing, this will be your restoring force. So under this restoring force it is moving up and down, right? So what is happening? So what we can say, as we know the characteristic of simple harmonic motion is F is directly proportional to the displacement. So what is the displacement? Displacement is x, and it is always acting towards the mean position. Therefore we have written F equal to minus F is directly proportional to minus x. Proportionality constant we are calling as k. So F equal to minus k into x. We are representing this with the equation 1, where x is the displacement of the particle from its equilibrium position. Naturally that you understand. K is also called the stiffness factor. You can call this a spring constant, or you can call this a stiffness factor, and its value depend upon the nature of the spring. Naturally if it is going to be a hard spring, it will have a different value. If it is going to be a soft spring, it will have a different value. A large it is large for hard spring. This is what is being written over here, hard spring, and it is small for a soft spring. All right. So this equation, the equation 1 that you are looking over here, is also called your Hooke's law. F equal to minus k into x is also called Hooke's law, right? So what we have done in the equation 1, we have taken F is nothing, say restoring force, is equal to minus k into x. Now let's apply the Newton's second law, and according to Newton's second law, what we say, F equal to m into a. mass into product of the mass and acceleration. Acceleration I can say is a rate of change of velocity, and velocity will equal to dx upon dt, right? So rate of change of velocity, so naturally it is going to be equal to d square x upon dt square. I think you must be knowing. Let us suppose the particle is moving. So let us suppose this displacement is x. So rate of change of displacement will equal to your velocity. So velocity v will equal to how much? Velocity v equal to your dx upon dt. Velocity v will equal to dx upon dt. If I'm going to differentiate this again, so then we'll be getting the rate of change of velocity, and then the rate of change of velocity will be your acceleration, and so therefore you differentiate this again. So what we can write, this we can write d square x upon dt square. So this is what has been written over here, d square x upon dt square. All right. So this is what I have written, F equal to ma. So m into d square x upon dt square. This is according to your Newton's second law. So both are your force. So equation 1 and equation 2 both are your force. So what we can do, we can equate these two equations. So therefore what I am saying, m d square x upon dt square will equal to how much? Minus k into x, right? So this is your minus k into x. So m d square x upon dt square is equal to how much? Minus k into x. So here we have m. So this m I have brought on the right hand side, and therefore I am calling this your minus k by m. So here we had m, as you can see in the equation number 2. Here you have the m d square x upon dt square is equal to minus k into x. So this m has been brought into the right hand side, and therefore I am writing d square x upon dt square is equal to minus k by m into x, right? So this I can take again on the left hand side, and this I can represent in form of the equation. So what I can say, d square x upon dt square plus k by m into x is equal to 0. So this is your second order differential equation, and this second order differential equation is going to represent your SHM. So the figure that you have seen in the previous slide, that it was giving you and oscillations, that is as the spring was moving and the spring was kept on the paper, and paper was also rolling over. So on that paper you have seen some mark is being made, and that mark was giving you a sine wave and cosine wave. So similarly, so we have written the mathematical equation for that sine wave or cosine wave. So what will that mathematical equation? D square x upon dt square plus k by m into x is equal to 0. So here k by m is called your angular frequency, right? So k by m is angular frequency, and we are representing this as omega square. K by m is equal to your omega square. That you should remember, right? So here k by m, so with the k by m I'm going to represent with the omega square. So what I can say, d square. Now you see this equation, let us suppose this equation I'm saying your 2, right? So whatever you want to say, you can say. So d square x upon dt square, this is equal to k by m, and k by m is equal to your omega square. So what I can say, this is your omega square into x. So this is what I have written over here. So d square x upon dt square is equal to minus omega square x, where omega is equal to nothing, k by m. So how we can represent this on the sine wave and cosine wave? So again the same thing is being done over here. So the spring that you are seeing above diagram, same type of this spring is oscillating, right? Now here instead of the x, here I have taken the displacement is being taken as the y, I have taken the displacement over here x. The displacement here has been taken in form of y. Not a problem, it's a same thing, right? Anyway, so then what is happening? Then as it is moving, it is making a trace. It is making a trace on the rolling paper in this way, which is going to form your sine wave and cosine wave, right? So then what we are finding, this is going to make a wave like this, and this wave is moving, right? So here I am saying y equal to a sine omega t. This is the wave that has been created. So the wave that I can say here, the displacement y is equal to a sine omega t. This is the displacement of the wave, right? So this is how the wave is moving. Now here a sine and omega equal to how much we can say, root under k by m, because omega square is equal to k by m. So omega equal to root under k by m. So a sine k by under root k by m. This is what I can write. This will be your equation, right? So equation number 3, and let us suppose if I am saying this is your equation number 4, so equation number 3 and 4 are the same thing. Equation number 3 and 4 are same thing. That is what I can say, where x equal to a sine omega t. Here, since I have solved this in form of the x, here this equation is in form of the x, so this also we can say this is in the form of the x, and therefore what we can say, x equal to a sine omega t. So what will be the solution for this? X equal to a sine omega t, where omega equal to under root k by m, right? So naturally it will have the frequency. So what will be frequency? Omega equal to 2 pi nu. Omega equal to 2 pi nu. Now here you see omega equal to 2 pi nu. So since we know what is the value of the omega, so therefore I can know what is the value of the frequency. So what I have done, I have calculated what is the value of the frequency. I can also calculate what is the time period, what is the total time taken in making a complete oscillations. So this is the time taken in making the complete oscillation. Now you see, this is the total time taken in making a complete oscillation. Time taken is equal to 1 upon nu, frequency. What is the time taken? 1 upon nu, and the value of the nu you have already calculated. As you can see over there, the value of nu has been calculated, right? So what is the value of nu? Omega upon 2 pi. So just you substitute the value of f equal to omega into omega upon 2 pi, and you have got the time period of this oscillation. So what you have got, spring is moving up and down, then it has constituted a wave, and the wave equation we can say d square x upon dt square plus root under k by m into x is equal to 0, where x equal to a sine omega t, and this a sine omega t is the value for the displacement of this wave, right, as I had shown you in the previous class with the mark. And moment we have got this wave a sine omega t, I know what is the value of the omega. Omega equal to how much? Root under k by m. So the moment I have got the value of the omega, it does mean I have got the value of the frequency, because frequency will equal to omega upon 2 pi. Frequency will equal to your omega upon 2 pi. I have got the frequency. The moment I have got the frequency, I have got the time period, and time period equal to 1 upon f. So all the basic characteristics of the this simple harmonic motion, we have got it. We have got the time period, we have got the sinusoidal wave, right? We have got the angular frequency, we have got the frequency, right? So all the basic characteristics of the wave along with its wave equation, we have got it. So this is your derivation of the equation of simple harmonic oscillator, right? Naturally this is your undamped. That is what we are saying, when this is going to move in the medium, that is this pendulum or the spring which is oscillating up and down. So while it is oscillating up and down, its amplitude is not going to change. So if amplitude is not going to change, that is called undamped oscillation. So this example that we have done is only for the undamped. For the damped also we have to do the different way of the damping that we'll try to understand in detail, right? But before we are going to move on that, we require to understand the complex form, how we can represent a wave in a complex form. So complex representation is more elegant way of presentation of the wave. So now let us see this. This equation of the motion is called a simple harmonic oscillator, or SHO, because the spring force depend upon the displacement x. I'm talking about the previous equation that we have calculated. The acceleration is not constant. What we have already got the value of acceleration. So acceleration is not constant. It is a second order linear differential equation, right? So d square x upon dt square, m d square x upon dt square. This is what you have got. So equal to minus omega square into x. So omega is your angular velocity. So what I'm saying, this is a second order differential equation, in which the second derivative of the dependent variable is proportional to the negative of the dependent variable. All right. So now I'm coming, before I'm going to represent your complex form. First we have one simple experiment, or you can say with the combination of the spring. So we have the two combination of the spring. Just as you have seen in the previous slide, that one mass was attached to the spring and the spring was oscillating. So it was one spring. Now we can have the combination of the spring. So we are going to do the two combinations. If the mass is attached in the series of the combination, and if it is going to attach with the parallel of the combination. So first let us see the series combination. So here let us suppose we have got the two spring. This is your spring number 1 and this is your spring number 2. These two springs are attached in series and their spring constant is your K1 and K2. They are attached in the series, so same force is acting on both of them. Since same force is acting on the spring 1 and 2, therefore I can say this is in your series combination. Now depending upon the value of the spring constant, whether I say hard or soft, accordingly it is going to stretch. So let us suppose the spring 1 is getting stretched by the value of x1 and spring 2 is getting stretched by the value of the x2, because we don't know what is the value of the spring constant. So K1 and K2, where K1 is greater or K2 is greater. So we are not going there. Depending upon the value of the spring constant, it is going to be elongated with a different value. So let us suppose x1 and x2 are going to be elongated. So the total elongation of this will be equal to how much? X1 plus x2. So x1 and x2 is going to be your total elongation, and this is what I am going to apply, and we are going to find out what will be the equivalent spring constant in this case. So this is what I have written. The two springs with the spring constant K1 and K2 is suspended in series combination. Let the first spring under the action of the mass is stretched by x1 and the second by x2, and the total stretch x is equal to your x1 plus x2. So if you apply the Hooke's law, x1 equal to what we can say? F upon K1, because F is constant. As you can see in the diagram, same F is active because it is a series combination. So force is not getting divided. So x1 equal to F upon K1 and x2 is also equal to F upon K1 because you have the same value of the force. So the total elongation x is equal to your x1 plus x2, right? And then I'm just going to substitute the value. So now let us suppose here for this total elongation, I'm going to say that let us suppose equivalent spring constant is equal to your K. So naturally, if I'm going to apply the Hooke's law, then for x equal to what I can say? F upon K, right? And x1 you have already got F upon K1 and F upon K2. So naturally here F and F are common in all of them, so they will get cancelled. So what you are getting, 1 upon K is equal to 1 upon K1 plus 1 upon K2. So the equivalent spring constant, just you take the LCM and reverse this, and because you have to find out the K, so the equivalent spring constant you are getting K equal to K1 plus K2, sorry, K1 into K2 upon K1 plus K2. So this is your equivalent spring constant in your series combination, right? So if you have got the equivalent spring constant, you can calculate what is the time period of this, right? That you have already seen in the previous class, previous slide, right? So all those parameters you can find out, right? Even you can, moment you have got the time period, then you can write down the wave equation for this. All right, because if you have got the time period, it does mean you have got what is the angle of frequency. So you can also write down what will be its differential wave, right, associated with the combination of this spring. All right, now we are moving to the next, that is we are going to the parallel combination of this spring. So now here again, the same way, the two spring, here you have the spring number 1 and the spring number 2, only the difference is they have been joined with a parallel. So if they have been joined with a parallel with a common force F, then this force is being divided on the spring 1 and the spring 2. So depending upon their spring constant, the stiffness, you will have the different value of the force. So let us suppose on F1, K1, the force that is acting is your F1, and on the second spring, with the spring constant K2, the force is acting your F2. So what is happening over here? The force is getting divided into the two parts. So what is the force which is acting? Force is your F. So this force is going to be divided into the two parts, F1 and F2. Let us suppose again the equivalent spring constant is K, and then let us calculate what is the value of spring constant. So this is what I have written here. The let two springs with the spring constant K1 and K2 is suspended in parallel combination. The common forces acting on the spring will be divided as per the spring constant as shown in the figure. Let force acting on the first and second spring be F1 and F2 respectively, and common force is F. So what I can say, F equal to F1 plus F2, apply your Hooke's law, F equal to K into X, right, is equal to K1 plus X plus K2 into X. So here what we are finding, here your X is common. So here you have the X, here you have the X, here you have the X. So this X will get cancelled. What I am getting, K is equal to K1 plus K2, and this is your equivalent spring constant. And this is for your parallel combination. So here again also we can write down what is your time period, right? What is your angle of frequency? What will be the differential equation for this combination? All those things whenever we require we can write down. Right. So now I'm coming to its mathematical representation in a complex form, because that is more elegant way of representation of the wave. So oscillatory motion can also be described using the complex number. This provides an elegant and concise representation and has important advantages. So first let us try to understand about the complex wave and the Argand, how we are going to represent them in the Argand plane, and then how we can write down the same x equal to a sine omega t in form of the complex wave. So this is what we want to look into. A complex number which is often represented by z, we say z equal to x plus iy, where z is your real part and y is called your imaginary part, and I square is equal to minus 1. We see that the complex number z has the two components, the real components and imaginary components. So this is what has been written there. A frequently useful quantity of a complex number is a complex conjugate. Here you see, which is denoted by an asterisk. It is obtained by changing I to minus I throughout. Thus we get a complex conjugate. So if you have the complex number x equal to z equal to x plus iy, so I you convert in form of minus I, so its conjugate equal to x minus iy, right? So this will be a complex conjugate. But if you are going to multiply this, the complex and its conjugate, this I have shown you in the quantum mechanics also, you are going to get a real number x square plus y square. So the frequently occurring quantities z, product of z and z conjugate, that is the product of the complex number with its complex conjugate, is given by z equal to x square plus y, where both of them are your real number. All right. Now let us suppose how we can represent that in the Argand plane. So x square plus y square, z equal to x square plus y square is a complex number, right? So this is what I want to write down in the Argand plane. So let us suppose this is in the Argand plane, the same complex number has been written here. So z square is equal to x square plus y square. So z equal to root under x square plus y square. So now let us suppose this has been taken at any angle theta in the clockwise direction, from the point. So this is your point where I'm going to represent in the polar coordinate as r into theta, because this can also be given as r, right? So what we are saying, this we can write in a coordinate system, and we can say z equal to under root x square plus y square, and this is how it is being represented in a plane. So the figure is referred as the Argand diagram of z. What is that? Z equal to root under x square plus y square, and theta is the angle that line OP makes with the positive x direction, measured in the anti-clockwise sense as given in the diagram. So this is how we have taken, this is the value that we have taken in this direction, it has been measured anti-clockwise direction, and this value that you have taken is your theta. So naturally now what you do, you resolve this into the two components. So this will be your x component, right? And this will be your y component. This will be your y component, right? So we can find out what will be, so this, what we can say, this is your x and this is your y. So x component and y component. So cos theta equal to x upon root under x square plus y square, and sin theta is equal to y upon root under x square plus y square, as you can see from this diagram. Because if this is your y, so naturally you are going to apply the sin theta, and if this is your x, you are going to apply the cos theta. So cos theta equal to x upon root under x square plus y square, where z is your nothing, this is your under root x square plus y square, and sin theta equal to y upon under root x square plus y square. This relation suggests the introduction of the polar coordinate, that is x equal to r cos theta, because what we are saying, root under x square plus y square, we are saying as r, root under x square plus y square, as we have said here z. In the polar coordinate we are calling as r. So what I can say from this equation here, x equal to r cos theta, this is your r, so r cos theta, and y equal to r sin theta, right, being the distance OP. So this is your OP, as you can see in the diagram. This is your distance OP. So for this distance OP, this is your OP, we can write x equal to r cos theta and y equal to r sin theta. This is how we represent in the polar coordinate, where x equal to naturally root under x square plus y square. The real breakthrough come through employing the important relation given by Euler's. And what is the relationship? E to the power I theta equal to cos theta plus I sin theta. E to the power I theta equal to cos theta plus I sin theta. We have already got the value of the cos theta and sin theta. So can't we substitute there? Yes, we can substitute there. So it follows the relation that z equal to, what we know, z equal to x plus iy. Z equal to x plus iy. X equal to how much? R cos theta. Y here, x equal to, you have taken r cos theta, and y equal to how much we have taken? R sin theta. This is value of the y that you have taken. So that I'm going to write over here. So here you have got the x, and here you have got the value of y. So I'm going to write in this equation, let us suppose this is equation number 1. In this equation, I'm going to write down the value of x and y. So x square plus y square under root, I'm going to write as r. So what I can say, r is in both in the your cos theta also and sin theta also. So r I have taken common. So here x r cos theta plus y I sin theta. I is there, so I sin theta. R has been taken constant. So what I can say, this is your r cos theta plus r I sin theta. Now if you apply the Euler formula, let us suppose this is equation number 1. So if you or equation number A, if you apply this Euler formula, what we can say, r e to power I theta, because cos theta plus I sin theta, cos theta plus I sin theta equal to how much? R e to power I theta. So argand plane, this argand plane can also be represented as r e to power I theta. So what I can say, this plane can also be represented as r e to power I theta. This is how I can represent this, right? R e to power I theta. We multiply r e to power I theta by e to power I phi, and we obtain another point z dash. So now what you do, let us suppose I want to move this to a next point. That is, I want to rotate this point OP and I want to go to the next point. Let us suppose at this point I want to come. So then what I have to do here, this value is to be required to be added. So the angle that you are going to move, this value is required to be added. So how you are going to add? Just if you are going, let us suppose this angle that you have moved is equal to your phi, that I am going to show you in the next diagram. Then what you do, that value of the phi you just multiply. So if you multiply r e to power I theta, that is this value in the equation number 1, r e to power I theta by e to power I phi. If you are just going to multiply, then you are getting a new point, and that new point is your z dash, right? And that z dash can be written as z into e to power I phi, right? Because e to power I theta is equal to, you know, you have a z. So z you have taken r e to power I theta, equation 1, you see r e to power I theta is already your z, and in the z you have multiplied another angle e to power I phi. What you have done, you have multiplied another angle e to power I phi, where phi is the angle that you have moved from here. You can move in the clockwise direction or you can move in the anti-clockwise direction, right? So let us suppose in the anti-clockwise direction I have moved from with the angle phi. So this can be represented, new position can be represented as r e to power I theta plus phi. So new position will come as r e to power I theta plus phi. So what I'm going to do, if this is going to be rotated, so let me show you again over here. This was your value OP, and if this is required to be moved to a new point, if it has to come to the over here, so what is the value you have rotated? You have, let us suppose, rotated from here by the angle of the phi. Then you can just represent this as r e to power I theta plus phi, where phi is the angle by which you have rotated and theta is the original angle at which it was originally already there. This is how we can represent in a complex form. So this is where what I have tried to show you in this figure. So this was the position OP. OP was your original position, as you can see here. OP is your original position, which is at the angle of the theta into an anti-clockwise direction. And from here, you have again moved by the angle of the phi in the anti-clockwise direction. And here you have come to the new position, right? And that new position I'm going to it is your Z dash, and that I can write R theta plus phi in the Argand plane, right? So what I can say, in the Argand diagram as shown in the figure, this corresponds to a rotating the line OP through the angle phi, right, in anti-clock direction to a new position OP dash, right? So what we have done, we have come by rotating this by the value of the phi into anti-clockwise direction. Now let us suppose if I am going to rotate this by the angle of pi by 2. If phi is equal to pi by 2, line is rotated, right, through pi by 2, then what is going to happen? So then what, apply your Euler formula, e to power I pi by 2, right, is equal to cos pi by 2 plus I sin pi by 2, right? So what you say, cos 90 degree is equal to 0 and sin 90 degree is 1. So this value is coming out to be 0, this value will be coming out to be 0, this value is coming to be 1. So what you are getting? You are getting I. What you are getting? I. What it does mean, if you are going to rotate this by the angle of 90 degree, then you require to just multiply it by I, and then I will say that we have rotated by the angle of 90 degree. So if you are going to multiply the angle by the pi by 2, it does, that is I, then it does mean you have multiplied it by pi by 2. So thus multiplying a complex number by I pi by 2 is equivalent to multiplying a number by I. So if I am going to just say e to power I, let us suppose earlier it is I is not there, but now I have introduced the I. It does mean you have moved this by the value of pi by 2. Similarly, multiplying a complex number by e to power I pi, not pi by 2, that is if you are going to multiply this by 180 degree. So from here, let us suppose you are going to come to a new position, that is here 180 degree you are going to multiply, right? Then it is just equivalent of multiplying it by minus I. So this will give you, for the concept of writing the its displacement, velocity, acceleration, all those things in a complex form, because the moment the phase is coming, so phase is to be represented in a complex form, then the solution of the equation will become easier, right? So if you are going to add theta plus pi by 2, theta plus phi, or theta plus pi by 2, it will take a longer solution. But if you are going to multiply it by pi, right, or I, or minus 1, then for a value of the 90 degree or 180 degree, your solution will become easier and it will be convenient and elegant. So this is where the complex number required. And that was the class that I wanted to take. I understand this is a very, very difficult time for all of you, through which all of you are going, and sometime it is going to continue. So before moving to the module 5, I'm going to first finish the module 1 again, which we have already done in the class with the chalk and talk form, right? So we'll finish this and then we'll be moving to the module 5. Thank you very much.